Hello, today we're going to continue with some more basic graphing things. Um, we are going to be basically just practicing using a graphing calculator and specifically Desmos because Desmos is nice, it's free, it's already on your iPad, it's very user friendly. So if you haven't used Desmos to graph things before, it's pretty straightforward. To graph an equation in Desmos, you just type in exactly what you see. So I'm going to walk you through this with each of these. Our goal for today is to take each of these equations and match them up to the graph that matches with that equation. So for number one, I go into Desmos. In the box, I'm going to type in exactly what I see. Y equals 2x plus 14. And it will kind of move around on you as you're graphing. Wait until the graph is completely finished before you decide which graph you're looking at. So then we see it's a line. It's a line with a positive slope, which means out of our pictures here, it needs to be either A or F. But what we want to pay attention to are things like where it crosses the X or Y axis here. If I click on this point here, it says that my graph is crossing the X axis at -7, which is exactly what we see happening here in graph A. So number one is graph A. We're going to do that for the rest of these. In Desmos, once you're done with something, you can either turn off the graph by clicking on this circle here with the colorful squiggle, or you can just hit the X here and completely get rid of whatever you had just graphed. So let's go down the list and try the rest of these. Next one is y equals 8 minus 2x. That's also a line. Notice it has a negative slope. The only picture out of my graphs here that's a line with a negative slope is G. You could also double check where your graph is crossing the y-axis, which is at 0, 8, which is exactly what we see going on here in G. So number two is graph G. Number three, I'm going to show you how to do this fraction in Desmos. So on your iPad, you'll be using this keypad. I usually just type things in on my keyboard on the computer. But to do that fraction, I do y equals, the way I get a fraction in Desmos is before I start typing my fraction, I hit this division key. I type in the top of my fraction for plus 3x, and then you can just click underneath here, type in the bottom of your fraction. I also get a line. This line is crossing the y-axis at 2. This is exactly what I'm seeing in graph F. So this one is F. As you can see, the rest of these graphs are not straight lines. Some of them are parabolas, which we'll talk more about in the future. And one of them is a cubic function, which again, we'll talk more about in the future. So number 4, y equals, to get that exponent, I'm going to do x, and then that squared button is this a squared here will give me my exponent too. Then just keep typing in the rest of the equation, minus 4. I have a parabola that looks like a regular U. It's facing up. So it means it's either graph C or graph E. The bottom of my graph here in graph C is at y equals -4, which is exactly what I have going on here. So this graph matches up with C. Next up, number 5, y equals 2 plus, again, we have a fraction, so hit your division sign, 1/3. Make sure you arrow over x, and then to get that exponent 2, use the squared button. This is also a parabola that's facing up. Out of all my pictures I have left, I only have one parabola that's facing up, which is E. Another way to double check it, the bottom of this graph is at y equals 2, which is exactly what I have going on here in this picture as well. So E is the answer to number 5. Number 6, y equals 3 minus x. To get that exponent 2, hit the squared button. We have an upside down parabola. And let's look at where this one is kind of situated. It's crossing the x-axis between -2 and -3, and again between 1 and 2. That's exactly what I have happening in letter H. So number 6 is H. You could have also looked at this top point here. The vertex, which is the very middle point, negative 0.5, 3.25, also matches up with h. Number 7, y equals 20x minus 5x, again, squared here will get me a squared. This one, I want to be able to see the whole parabola, so you can zoom in and zoom out just like you do with any other app. And I can see that the top of my graph here, the vertex, that very middle point, is at 220, which is exactly what we see happening in letter B. 2 more. Y equals negative x squared minus 4x plus 1. The vertex, the middle point of the graph, is at negative 2, 5, which is exactly what I see happening in graph D. By default, the last one has to be graph I, but let's just practice graphing that in Desmos. So my equation is y equals x. Then I have a third power. To get a third power, I don't have a special button for third power, but I have an exponent button, a to the b. Hit that a to the b, and then type in 3, and that gives me my third power. Then keep going. Minus 2x squared button plus x minus 3. I get this curvy shaped graph, which looks exactly like what I see in letter I. So the goal for your homework today is to just look at the graphs, type them in Desmos, help you figure out which graph, which equation matches which graph picture. That is it. I hope you have a wonderful day.